rain started around midnight, thin needles that glittered under the glow of highway lights, and then vanished into the black. A man named David Sloan sat behind the wheel of a long-haul rig that had seen better years, its dashboard covered with faded stickers and coffee rings. He had been driving since dawn, hauling frozen produce from Oregon to Nevada, a route he'd taken so many times he could almost do it blind. But that night felt different. The road hummed under his tires in a way that made the steering column tremble, and the CB radio crackled with the strange static that rose and fell like breathing. David wasn't the type to scare easily. 15 years on American highways had shown him the worst the world could offer. Blizzards, deer strikes, drunken drivers, people who stepped into the road without warning. But this stretch of Route 97 had a reputation that even hardened truckers respected. They called it the Corridor, a 60-mile run of asphalt, cutting through pine forest and desert, where radio signals died, GPS froze, and, if the stories were true, people sometimes just disappeared. He'd heard the tales at truck stops, a van full of college kids that left Bend and never arrived in Reno. A highway patrol officer who pulled over a speeding car, called in the plates, and was never heard from again. Some drivers said the pavement itself moved, that the white line shifted after dark, so you could drive for hours and never reach the next town. David laughed at that sort of thing, until that night. At 12:47 a.m., his headlights picked up something small on the shoulder. He slowed automatically. A sedan sat angled against the guardrail, hazard lights pulsing weakly. Steam rolled out from under the hood. He tapped his brakes, glanced at the clock, and muttered, "Damn it." The rule among drivers was simple. Never stop on the corridor. But it was raining harder now, and the thought of someone stuck out there alone didn't sit right. He eased the rig to a stop about 20 yards behind the car, flipped on his flashers, and climbed down. The night air smelled of wet asphalt and pine. His boots splashed through puddles as he approached the car. "Hey, you all right in there?" He shouted. No answer. He leaned close to the driver's window. Inside, condensation blurred the glass, but he could make out the shape of a woman slumped over the steering wheel. He knocked hard. Nothing. He pulled the door handle. It was unlocked. "Ma'am," he said, opening it slightly. The dome light flickered on, revealing a woman in her late 20s, wearing a rain-soaked hoodie. Her face was pale, eyes open but unfocused. For one terrifying second he thought she was dead. Then she blinked. "Hey, easy," he said. "You hurt?" Her lips moved, barely audible. "He's still out there?" David felt a chill crawl up his spine. "Who?" She looked past him toward the trees. "The man with the light." Lightning flashed, throwing the forest into sharp relief. Nothing moved, just black trunks, silver water streaming off leaves. "Okay," he said slowly. "Let's get you in the truck where it's warm. I'll call for help." She shook her head violently. "No." He said not to leave the car. He said he'd come back if I... She stopped. Her eyes widened. Then David heard it too. A faint scraping sound from somewhere behind the guardrail, like metal dragging against stone. He turned, scanning the dark with his flashlight. The beam caught a glint of something. A piece of reflective tape, maybe. He couldn't tell. "Hello?" he called. "Highway patrol." The scraping stopped. He waited, heart thudding. Then the noise started again, slower, closer, deliberate. "Get in the truck," he told her. She hesitated, trembling. Finally she nodded. He guided her out of the sedan, covering her with his jacket, and led her back toward the rig. The rain had turned to a sheet, drumming on the asphalt. Once inside the cab, David locked the doors and handed her a towel. "Name's David," he said, trying to sound calm. "What's yours?" "Laura." "Okay, Laura, you got a phone?" She shook her head. It died hours ago. Figures. He reached for his CB mic. Breaker 19. Anyone got ears on Route 97 southbound near mile marker 41? Got a stranded motorist here. Possible injury. Static. No response. He tried again. Still nothing but that low, rhythmic hiss. He glanced at her. Where were you headed? Reno, she said. My brother's wedding. You drive out here alone? She nodded. My GPS went crazy. It kept rerouting me. Then I saw lights behind me for miles. High beams. Never got closer. Never passed. Just followed. Then it disappeared and my car started smoking. David rubbed a hand over his face. Probably some jerk messing with you. She looked out the window. He wasn't human. Before he could answer, something hit the side of the truck. A sharp metallic bang that made both of them jump. David snatched the flashlight and pointed it through the rain-streaked glass. Nothing there. Then another bang, lower down, like a wrench hitting steel. Stay here, he said. No, she grabbed his arm. Please don't go out. It's probably just wine-throwing debris. He gently freed himself and opened the door. The rain slapped his face as he circled the truck. The flashlight beam trembled slightly in his hand. The mud flaps, tires, and fuel tank looked fine. He crouched, scanning underneath, and froze. Something was wedged between the rear axles, a piece of cloth torn and soaked dark. He tugged it free and realized it was a sleeve from a jacket, the kind worn by maintenance workers, bright orange with a reflective stripe. He looked back toward the trees. Lightning flashed again, and for an instant he saw a figure standing by the sedan, tall, motionless, wearing what looked like a high-visibility jacket. When the light faded, the figure was gone. David climbed back into the cab, breathing hard. We're leaving, he said. He started the engine, gears whining. Hang on. They rolled back onto the highway. The wipers slapped furiously. Laura sat silent, eyes locked on the mirror. After a few miles, she whispered, You saw him, didn't you? David didn't answer. He focused on the white lines, hypnotic in the rain. 10 minutes passed, then 15. The road ahead looked endless. No signs, no exits. The fuel gauge flickered even though he'd filled up 2 hours earlier. At 1:32 a.m., the radio came alive. A voice cut through the static, male, low, distorted. Truck 864. You picked her up. David froze. He hadn't given his call sign to anyone. Who is this? Turn around. Laura started to cry. It's him, she said. He said he'd find me. David switched the radio off, but the voice continued faintly from the speakers, even without power, whispering, She's mine. The lights flickered. The dashboard gauges spun wildly, then reset. Hold tight, he said, flooring the accelerator. The truck roared down the highway, and that was when they saw the lights ahead. 2 bright beams floating above the asphalt, unmoving. At first, David thought it was another vehicle stopped in the lane, but as they got closer, the lights rose higher, drifting toward them. He swerved, tires shrieking, barely missing the ditch. The lights vanished into the rain. David stared past Laura toward the open door that led into the night. The bell above it swayed slightly, though there was no wind. Outside, the rain had stopped, but the darkness looked thick, almost heavy. For a moment, he could swear there was someone standing just beyond the neon glow, a shadow taller than the doorway, unmoving. He blinked, and it was gone. Laura backed away from the door, voice shaking. David, what's happening? He forced a small, nervous laugh. Probably a breaker tripped. Maybe the cook stepped out for a smoke. But his voice didn't sound convincing, even to himself. He moved toward the payphone near the counter, lifted the receiver, and froze. The phone cord was cut clean through, just hanging there. He turned slowly toward Laura. Her expression changed. Not fear, exactly, but something else. Guilt. You knew, he said quietly. You knew this was going to happen. Tears filled her eyes. I didn't think he'd follow me this far. I thought if someone helped me. Who is he? She looked toward the door again. I told you, the man with the light. David clenched his jaw. Enough of that ghost crap. There's someone out there messing with us. I'm going the truck fishtailed, then stabilized. His hands shook. Something's wrong with this road, Laura said. It doesn't end. David looked at the odometer. He'd driven 42 miles since picking her up. The last sign he remembered was mile marker 41. He slowed. The rain eased to a mist. Ahead, through the fog, a small diner appeared on the right, neon sign flickering. Open 24 hours. Coffee and pie. Relief flooded him. He pulled in, engine rumbling down to idle. The diner's windows glowed warm yellow. A single pickup sat in the lot. He turned to Laura. Let's get inside. Dry off. Figure out what's going on. They stepped out into the damp silence. The rain had stopped completely. The air smelled of burnt coffee and ozone. As they neared the door, David noticed something odd. There were no footprints leading from the pickup to the entrance, though the ground was slick mud. He pushed the door open. A bell jingled overhead. Inside, fluorescent lights hummed. Red vinyl booths lined the wall. Behind the counter, a coffee pot steamed unattended. No customers. No staff. Hello? David called. Silence. He stepped behind the counter, found the pot still hot. Someone had been there minutes ago. On the floor lay a folded paper napkin with a smear of red ink, or something that looked like ink. He picked it up. 3 words were written in shaky handwriting. Don't trust her. He turned slowly. Laura stood by the door, eyes wide, hands trembling. David, she whispered. It was a warm August night when Tom Erickson decided to drive from Salt Lake City to Las Vegas. He was exhausted from a week-long business trip, the kind of fatigue that makes the highway feel endless, the world outside the windshield a blur of black and orange. He preferred the late hours, fewer trucks, fewer cars. But that night, the emptiness of I-15 felt different, almost unnatural. The mile markers had been passing regularly until he noticed a series of flashing red lights up ahead, scattered across the median. At first, he thought it was a construction zone, but there were no signs, no barricades, no cones, just the lights. Curious, and despite a warning deep in the back of his mind, he slowed down. That's when he saw her. A woman standing on the shoulder, arms raised as if waving for help. She was young, maybe 25, wearing a white dress that fluttered in the heat-distorted air above the asphalt. Tom hesitated. The rules of highway safety screamed at him. Don't stop. Don't pick up strangers. But something about her made him pull over. Maybe it was the way her head was tilted, hair plastered to her face, or the way she didn't seem to breathe normally. As he stepped out, the air felt heavier, almost viscous, like it was pressing down on his chest. The woman didn't move toward him, just stood there, still, watching. Are you okay? Tom called. No response. He took a cautious step forward, then another. The lights behind her flickered, grew brighter, then dimmed. It was disorienting. He reached out, gently tapping her shoulder. Her skin was cold, ice cold, and wet. Though the air was warm, she turned slowly toward him, and for a brief second, he thought he saw the faintest smile. Then her eyes, those eyes, completely black, void of iris or pupil, just darkness. Tom stumbled back, his stomach twisting. What "What are you doing out here?" he managed. Her lips didn't move, but the sound reached him anyway, inside his head. "Drive, don't stop, or she dies." Tom blinked, confused, terrified. He staggered back to his truck. She didn't move, didn't chase him. She just watched. A silent sentinel. Inside the cab, he locked the doors and started the engine. The radio was dead, only static, except for faint whispering, like dozens of voices overlapping. "Drive, don't stop, don't stop, don't stop." The road ahead seemed longer than it should have been. Mile markers flashed past, but instead of counting up, they began to repeat. 104, 125, 104, 125. Tom gripped the steering wheel tighter. He tried to call 911, but the phone said, "No service." As he drove, the road narrowed. The lines blurred. The desert on either side seemed to stretch closer, as if the walls were moving. Suddenly, the headlights picked up a car, a black sedan, parked in the middle of the left lane. There was no driver. Tom swerved to avoid it. Then it disappeared, not just vanished from sight, but completely erased from existence, as if it had never been there. Heart pounding, Tom kept driving, eyes darting to the shoulder. There was movement now. Small figures, shadows darting behind rocks and brush. Every time he looked directly at them, they froze, but the feeling of being watched never left him. At 1:15 a.m., his rearview mirror showed the headlights approaching fast. Too fast, no sound, just the blinding glare of lights, far too bright, too close, almost like the sun had dropped behind him. Then they weren't behind him anymore. They were ahead, and the car was gone. A voice came from the passenger seat. Tom's heart jumped. He was alone. "You shouldn't have stopped." He looked down. Nothing. No one there. Then he saw it. A handwritten note on the dash. Red ink. 3 words. "Keep driving now." He did. Minutes passed. Hours. He lost track of time. His speedometer climbed unnaturally. The odometer rolled backward. He had no idea how far he had gone. Then, in the distance, he saw headlights. A semi-truck barreling toward him in his lane. Tom slammed the brakes. Tires screamed, heart in his throat. The truck vanished. The road stretched straight for miles. The desert night was absolute black. No moon, no stars. Then came another car. This one small, hatchback, headlights off. It appeared out of nowhere, shadowing him, keeping pace. He tried to accelerate. It matched him every time. Then the hatchback pulled alongside. In the faint light, he saw the driver, the same woman from the shoulder. Her black eyes stared straight at him. The whisper in his head returned. "Drive, don't stop, or she dies." Tom's hands were slick with sweat. The road was a tunnel now. There were no signs, no guardrails, only asphalt and darkness. Every mile marker blinked past him. 102, 103, 102. The hatchback pulled closer. He could see her lips moving. Though no sound escaped, the whispers grew louder, filling his skull, vibrating his teeth. Suddenly, in the reflection of the rearview mirror, he saw dozens of headlights behind him. Dozens. Semi-trucks, cars, motorcycles, all coming at impossible speeds. They made no sound. They were spectral, elongated, faceless, completely black. Tom screamed. The steering wheel jerked from his hands. His truck fishtailed. And then, impossibly, the truck in front, the hatchback, vanished, replaced by a note on the windshield. "Don't look back." He obeyed. Hours passed like minutes. The road never changed. The desert never ended. Exhaustion clawed at him, his eyelids heavy, his mind breaking. Then he saw lights ahead. A rest stop. Finally. Salvation. He pulled in, slammed the truck in park, and staggered out. The lot was empty. No vehicles, no people, only the faint smell of gasoline and desert dust. He walked toward the vending machines, coins in his hand. Then he felt it. The eyes, black, unblinking, inside his skull. The whisper, "You shouldn't have stopped." He spun around. No one. When the sun rose, the highway patrol found his truck abandoned near mile marker 105. Keys in the ignition, engine warm. Tom was gone. His phone was on the passenger seat, still showing 0 bars, battery drained. On the dashboard, a single note in red ink. "Next time, you won't drive alone." Tom's disappearance became the kind of story that only truckers and highway travelers whisper about at stops, late at night, when the neon signs flicker and the wind carries strange sounds across the asphalt. People said he had been cursed by the corridor, punished for stopping when he shouldn't have, watched by something that existed beyond the rules of the road. The next week, a rookie trucker named Mark Jensen was assigned the same Salt Lake to Las Vegas route. Experienced drivers warned him, "Don't pull over after dark," they said. "If you see lights on the shoulder, keep going. Don't stop, no matter what." Mark laughed. He thought it was just folklore. Urban legends passed between weary drivers to make the lonely nights less boring. But he didn't laugh for long. At 11:30 p.m., rain slicked the road. Mark's rig was loaded with electronics, boxes stacked high, his route almost routine. Mile marker 104 passed under the tires when he saw the first sign. Red flashing lights scattered across the median. His stomach sank. He recognized the warning from old stories, the ones about travelers disappearing for no reason. He slowed. The lights blinked, then went out. A figure appeared on the shoulder. A young woman in a white dress, arms raised. His heart pounded. He remembered the warnings. "Just keep going," he muttered aloud, but his curiosity betrayed him. He slowed further, eyes on the figure. The woman didn't move toward him. She didn't walk. She floated slightly above the asphalt, her hair plastered to her face. He froze as she lifted a hand, pointing directly at him. Mark felt a chill run down his spine. The air inside the cab turned icy. The radio flared to life, static at first, then a whisper, unmistakable. "Stop, or she dies." Mark slammed his foot down. The tire screeched. The rig skidded slightly. Rain-slicked asphalt giving way beneath him. He swerved, the headlights catching her face for a moment. Her eyes were black, deep, endless pits, staring into his soul. The whispering returned, louder, overlapping with itself. "Stop, stop, don't stop. She's mine." Mark gritted his teeth. "I don't even know who you are," he muttered, voice shaking. "And I don't care." But the road had changed. Mile markers passed, but they didn't add up. 4, 5, 4, 5. His GPS spun in circles. No matter how far he drove, the landscape remained identical. Desert stretching endlessly. Road straight as a blade. No exits, no civilization. Suddenly, in the distance, he saw headlights approaching fast, a semi barreling toward him in his lane. He swerved, barely avoiding it, heart hammering. He realized something terrifying. The truck wasn't real. It vanished before his eyes, leaving no skid marks, no tire tracks, nothing. He pressed the accelerator. The whisper inside his head rose to a scream. "Drive. Keep going, or she dies." The white dress appeared in the distance again, floating, unmoving, arms raised, pointing. Mark's vision blurred with rain and fear. The rearview mirror showed more lights. Dozens, impossibly close, all without drivers. They were semi-trucks, cars, SUVs, all moving too fast, spectral, shadowy. The highway had become a tunnel of death. Mark felt his hands shaking uncontrollably. The rig's engine roared as if possessed. He drove faster. The whispering escalated, overlapping voices screaming, "Don't stop! Don't stop! She's mine! Don't look back!" Suddenly the road shifted. Mark wasn't sure if he had taken a wrong turn, or if reality itself had warped. The mile markers repeated again, now in reverse. 105, 4, 103, 102, 5, 4, 103. His rig seemed to be spinning in place, though the desert stretched endlessly ahead. Then the hatchback appeared beside him, lights off, silent, shadowy. The woman inside, the same one from the shoulder, stared at him, eyes black, mouth slightly open. The whisper, "Drive. Keep her alive." Mark's mind screamed, "Alive? Who?" But he couldn't stop. He couldn't look away. The rig began to fishtail. Tires screeched. The spectral vehicles closed in from behind. Lights bright, faceless, moving impossibly fast. He felt their presence pressing from all sides, closing in, crushing the cab with invisible weight. Then, in a flash of clarity, he remembered the warnings. Do not stop, no matter what. He floored the accelerator, gripping the wheel like a lifeline. The road straightened. The mile markers began to align. 4, 5, 106. For a moment, he thought he was safe. But then came the sound, a low metallic scraping from the shoulder, growing louder. Mark's stomach turned. The hatchback appeared again, this time blocking the lane ahead. Its doors were closed, but he could hear movement inside, the faint whisper of voices. Mark swerved hard. The rig slid into the shoulder gravel. He spun the wheel, trying to get back on the road. And then he saw it, the figure standing on the hood of the hatchback, balancing perfectly as the vehicle moved. Hair plastered, dress wet, eyes black as the void. She raised a hand, pointing directly at him. "Stop, or she dies." Mark's vision blurred with panic. His instincts screamed to escape, but the road was endless. The rig refused to accelerate past a certain speed, as if some force held it back. He slammed the brakes, tires skidded, gravel flew, the hatchback vanished. Ahead, the desert seemed to split open. Lights flickered in impossible shapes. A diner appeared in the distance. Neon, red, flickering. Open, 24 hours. Coffee and pie. Relief surged through him. Finally, a place to stop. He pulled in, tires crunching gravel. The cab door felt heavier than normal. He opened it, climbed out, and looked around. The lot was empty. The diner lights flickered, casting long shadows. A single pickup sat parked. No people. Mark's phone vibrated in his pocket. He pulled it out. No signal. Battery drained. A note appeared on the windshield. Red ink. "You shouldn't have stopped." He turned slowly. The shadows of the desert pressed in around him. The air thickened. The black-eyed woman appeared at the edge of the parking lot, floating, unmoving, arms raised. Mark ran to the cab, doors locked. Engine roared to life. He drove back onto the highway. The desert stretched endlessly. Mile markers repeated, 104, 5, 4, 5. For hours he drove. No lights, no civilization, only the whispering. "Keep her alive, keep her alive, drive, don't stop." By dawn, a patrol officer found the abandoned rig. Engine warm, doors locked. Mark was gone. No footprints, no signs of struggle, just the rig, and the desert stretching endlessly behind it. On the dashboard, a single note in red ink. "Next time, you won't escape."